I'm very proud of my faith and the work I've done there. I'm a Sunday school teacher, and Christian nationalism is so much of what pushed me into this because that is not Christianity and that's not right. Here's the thing: you have the right to have religious beliefs as extreme as they are that I do not believe in.
Right. Let's move on to civil rights. I looked at your website this morning because I was making notes, and I noticed that you talked a lot about dignity, equality, and freedom from discrimination, and the keeping the government out of private medical decisions, equal treatment under the law, safe communities, and defending everybody's rights, no matter who they are. And I wondered if you could expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, to me, that's the core of who we are. You don't raise a generation like mine pledging allegiance to the flag and saying with liberty and justice for all every morning and expect us to forget the for all part.
Yeah.
That's not right. And rights are not this pie that if I have rights that then there aren't any left for anyone else. Now there are some things, right? You don't have the right to hurt people. You don't have the right to, cause harm. We have restrictions. It's like driving. Yeah, we have public roads, we pay for that, absolutely. But we do have a public safety concern. So we have tests, you have a license, you carry insurance. Then we talk about that it's for everybody. I mean, it is for everybody. Here's the thing: I'm very proud of my faith and the work I've done there. I'm a Sunday school teacher, and Christian nationalism is so much of what pushed me into this because that is not Christianity and that's not right. Here's the thing: you have the right to have religious beliefs as extreme as they are that I do not believe in.
Right.
It's like when people burn the flag. Well, I took an oath to the Constitution, and burning the flag is protected under the First Amendment.
That's
So
right.
I'm proud to see someone exercise that right. Whether I agree with the message or not, whether I would burn the flag or not, is not important. What's
Because
important is that
they
they
can do
have
it.
the right to do it. And
Right.
that is what we have to protect. We have to protect freedom of speech. We have to protect journalism, something we don't really have right now. We
Too
have
many
to protect
too many
health.
people equate thinking it's a bad idea to it being evil or wrong. And we don't, a certain segment of the population thinks that if they don't agree with it, then it must be wrong. It must be evil. It's not from their tribal team. And, there is just objective right things to do. And I was going to go on to also the Veterans Administration. Um, you put on your website about expanding military spouse career opportunities and ensuring better health care for veterans and for service members alike, and improving base housing and other things that the soldiers use.
Yeah. So that's something very personal. Obviously, I met my husband while we were both active duty. I left the military before him and spent some time, not much, but some time as a military spouse. And it's actually one of the first policies I worked on. And it's part of why, in my advocacy work, I was called into Maryland to help make them a veteran and military spouse friendly space. And I also saw it in my corporate career, how we could prove things. So when we left the military, I had spent some time in command. My husband was leaving command. We had the opportunity to go over to Italy, and I could not work there with two kids. I'd have two kids under 3. I could not stay in the reserves because they weren't hiring officers at that point in European command. I couldn't stay in the guard because what was I supposed to do with two kids while he was in command on active duty to fly home back to the States? I could have worked at the PX. That was my option, was to
That's
get
good.
my groceries. And trust me, there is dignity in that work and it is important.
Sure.
But that wouldn't have even covered childcare. I couldn't even try and get my MBA online because there was no option for childcare if you weren't working full time.
Yeah.
And Dr. Biden had come to Fort Benning, and she asked, like, what are we blind to right now? What could we improve? And my husband was not very political. He's gotten much more so, but he was raised in a family, you kind of keep your head down, keep status quo. And I'm like, I don't think she's asking me polite, but even if she is, like, I'm still going to say something. So I raised my hand, and he's like, my commanders are here, like, don't. And I'm like, who you married? So I raised my hand and I explained this. I'm like, hey, the SOFA laws in Italy are so incredibly outdated. This is the situation my family ended up in. So we're probably going to leave the military instead of go through this because 3 years of not working and being a stay-at-home parent overseas would be next to impossible for me to go in and have a career at the end of that.
Yeah.
And she's like, I had no idea. Aide got my contact information. 6 weeks later, SOFA laws were changed.
Right.
That's all it took because someone said that. And I look at companies and when they get benefits for hiring veterans and for hiring military spouses, which they absolutely should, but it can't be bullshit just for the tax break. You actually have to invest. So I need to see that there's some growth metrics. It
Yeah.
cannot be an entry level minimum wage job
Right.
that you're like, oh, this person's a military spouse. Like, I'm going to give them this really, like, they're desperate for a job. So I'm going to give them this really entry, basic level, not pay them fairly, capitalize off of that, even though they have a master's degree,
Right.
but they just need a job. And like, no one wants to hire military spouses.
Yeah.
And then I'm also going to get a tax break for doing that. And then I'm going to fire them a year later. So I have, that would be one that's really long for me to talk about, like every policy I have there
Yeah.
that I'd like to see implemented nationally. A great one that we have, if you have your professional certificate, the military, when you move, is responsible for paying for your new licensing fees.
Right.
You're a state agent in Georgia and the military PCSs you to Washington State. They cover the fee for you to take the new test.
Yeah.
Super easy, not a big budget strain at all. For the DoD, really helpful for families.
Right.
Um, we have to change how the daycare system on post works and how it's prioritized.
And
Housing is a huge one. We have to deprivatize military housing, or I mean, that's insane.
I
Uh,
was going to say, not enough attention is paid to the fact that military families really make or break a duty station because if things are not right in the family, then the quality of the soldiers' service might go down because they're
oh, it does.
distracted
Yeah.
and all that. So it really this was a key item I think that was brought up when the Space Command was going to be moved from Colorado Springs to Alabama,
Alabama. Hmm.
and Alabama just doesn't have the same kind of state laws that Colorado does in terms of protecting people and offering a full slate of social services and help for people.
And I think that's when you look at it and you're like, military families shouldn't have to be relying on social services.
Right.
That's true in theory, and that's not the reality. So much of military bases and the military itself runs off of the unpaid labor of spouses and families. And the system used to be, hey, you made a good living and things were taken care of for you. You made a good living. Your spouse could stay home if they wanted to. And if they did work, it was for fun, right? That's not what's happening. We have so many families that are on SNAP benefits in the military. It's not sustainable at
Right.
all. And then it's expected that, hey, you have to volunteer for this and volunteer for that. And it's still a system. This is culturally, it's not something I can change at the federal level, but I can bring attention to culturally that, the FSRG program became a commander's program. And many commanders aren't married and stuff at this point. But, well, if you are, though, and your spouse isn't fully involved, it's looked negatively and it affects your rating. That's such a bad system that's just so unrealistic.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that needs to be changed, and it needs to be changed on the VA side as well,
Yeah.
especially here in the first district. What I would be advocating for to just I want to say fix, but at this point protect the VA.
Stop firing professionals.
We lost Mark. We lost 10,000 mental health care providers from the VA just in Virginia in the last couple
Right.
months. Just in Virginia. Just mental health providers. We're not talking admin. We're not talking any of that. We're talking legit providers. I remember where I was when a veteran shot themselves in the VA parking lot to make a statement. I remember that.
Yeah.
We will not go back to that. And that is exactly what this administration is trying to do. The reality is a dead veteran is less expensive than one that's alive.
Yeah.
And everything in this administration is for personal profit.